The thunderous roar of steam, the rhythmic chug of pistons, the mournful wail of a whistle echoing through mountain passes. These iron giants once ruled America's rails, hauling the dreams and commerce of a growing nation. 10. Santa Fe 3751, the Pioneer Northern. When the Baldwin Locomotive Works delivered Santa Fe 3751 in May 1927, they created history. This was the first 484 Northern-type locomotive ever built for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway, and at $99,712.77, it represented a massive investment in speed and power. The railroad initially called it a heavy mountain or new mountain, continuing their mountain class numbering sequence, but the 484 wheel arrangement would eventually become known worldwide as the Northern type. Tests proved this locomotive was 20% more efficient than Santa Fe's best 482 mountain types, validating the railroad's gamble on innovation. Originally built as a coal burner, number 3751 underwent conversion to oil in 1936, receiving a substantial tender holding 20,000 gallons of water and over 7,000 gallons of fuel oil. As built, she rode on 73-inch drivers, enlarged to 80 inches in 1941, and became central to Santa Fe's passenger operations, pulling legendary trains like the Scout and the Grand Canyon Limited. The 3751 holds the distinction of being the oldest surviving 484 type steam locomotive in the world. After pulling her final revenue train in August 1953, she avoided the scrapyard and was donated to the city of San Bernardino. Remarkably, she was restored to operating condition in 1991 and continues to make occasional excursion runs today. Her survival is remarkable. Santa Fe rostered roughly 78 484s across its classes, and at least 9 survive today, including 3,751, 3,759, 3,768, and 6 of the later 2900S. 9. New York Central, number 999, the Speed Demon. Before the age of streamlining, before diesel horns replaced steam whistles, there was New York Central, number 999. Built in 1893 for the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, this 440 American-type locomotive was designed with one-purpose speed. And on May 10, 1893, pulling the Empire State Express near Batavia, New York, she allegedly became the first steam locomotive in history to exceed 100 miles per hour, with some sources claiming she hit 112.5 miles per hour. The locomotive was the brainchild of NYC's General Passenger Agent George Daniels and Chief Superintendent William Buchanan, who modified their successful Class 1 design for maximum velocity. With enormous 86-inch driving wheels, the largest ever applied to a 440, she was built for publicity as much as performance. The highly polished bands, pipes, and trim, combined with satin black finish and gold leaf lettering spelling Empire State Express on her tender, made her the superstar of her era. After her record-breaking run, number 999 continued hauling the Empire State Express between Buffalo and Syracuse until 1899. But her extraordinary drivers proved problematic when pulling more than 5 cars, causing excessive wheel slip. She was rebuilt with standard 70-inch drivers and worked local and branch lines until 1924. After several exhibition appearances, including the Baltimore and Ohio's Fair of the Iron Horse in 1925, she was finally retired in 1952. Today, she's preserved at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry, the last witness to the dawn of high-speed rail travel. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Thanks to all of you who do. 8. Milwaukee Road Hiawatha Class of the Streamlined Speedster. When the Milwaukee Road introduced its Hiawatha service on May 29, 1935, America was still gripped by the Great Depression. But these Art Deco masterpieces, with their distinctive orange and maroon livery, brought hope and excitement back to rail travel. The Class A 442 Atlantic types, built by the American Locomotive Company, were engineering marvels designed for sustained triple-digit speeds and capable of reaching 120 miles per hour. On May 15, 1935, locomotive number 2 set a verified speed record of 112.5 miles per hour over a 14-mile stretch between Milwaukee and New Lisbon, Wisconsin, making it the fastest authenticated speed for a steam locomotive at that time. These engines weren't just fast, they were revolutionary. Styled by Otto Kohler with a bullet-shaped nose and streamlined shrouding, they looked as if they were flying even when standing still. The tender featured the prominent Hiawatha emblem, one of the most iconic railroad logos ever created. The Hiawathas were so successful that Milwaukee Road expanded the fleet, later introducing the even more powerful F7 Class 464 Hudsons in 1937 to 1938. These larger engines maintained the same blazing speeds while hauling heavier consists. Baron Gerard Villet once recorded the F7 hitting 125 miles per hour and sustaining 120 miles per hour for 4.5 miles. Not a single Hiawatha steam locomotive was preserved. When the last one was cut up in 1951, an entire chapter of speed and style vanished forever. The Hiawatha name lives on with Amtrak's Chicago-Milwaukee service, but those magnificent steamers exist only in photographs and memories. 7. Chesapeake and Ohio H8. Allegheny, the Mountain Mover. When Lima Locomotive Works rolled out the first Chesapeake and Ohio H8 Allegheny in 1941, they created a monster. With its 2.666 wheel arrangement, this articulated giant weighed 1.2 million pounds with tender and could generate an incredible 7,500 horsepower, the highest ever recorded by a steam locomotive. These behemoths were built specifically to haul coal over the Allegheny Mountains, tackling the brutal 13-mile climb with its 0.577% grade. The Allegheny's design pushed every boundary of steam technology. Its prodigious firebox could consume 7 to 8 tons of coal per hour, while the engine gulped 12,000 to 14,000 gallons of water in the same time. With the heaviest axle load of any steam locomotive at 86,700 pounds, these engines required specially reinforced track. The unique tender design, taller at the rear to fit within turntable limits, carried 25,000 gallons of water and 25 tons of coal. C&O ultimately purchased 60 of these Titans between 1941 and 1948, each costing up to $392,500. Despite their immense power, they were often underutilized, dragging 10,000-ton freights at a cautious 15 miles per hour when they could have handled 5,000 tons at 45 miles per hour. Their reign was brief by 1952. Barely a decade after the first was built, C&O began retiring them in favor of diesels. Today, only 2 survive, number 1601 at the Henry Ford Museum and number 1604 at the B&O Railroad Museum, silent monuments to the absolute peak of steam technology. 6. Southern Pacific Cab forwards the backward giants. In the treacherous snow sheds and lengthy tunnels of the Sierra Nevada, Southern Pacific faced a unique challenge: how to keep engine crews from suffocating in their own smoke. Their solution was revolutionary: turn the locomotive around. The cab-forward design, with the engineer and fireman seated at the front of the engine ahead of the boiler, became Southern Pacific's signature from 1908 to 1958. The AC-12 class, built by Baldwin between 1943 and 1944, represented the pinnacle of cab-forward evolution. These 4 882 articulated locomotives could generate over 6,000 horsepower and were specifically designed to handle the grueling grades over Donner Pass. Because they burned oil instead of coal, fuel could be piped from the tender to the firebox, making the backward configuration possible. The improved forward visibility proved invaluable when navigating the Sierra's curves and tunnels. Southern Pacific ultimately owned 256 cab forwards of various classes, the largest fleet of this unique design in the world. They became so synonymous with the railroad that seeing one anywhere else would have been unthinkable. The last cab forward in revenue service is documented as number 4274 AC-10, which made a final Oakland to Davis run on November 30th, 1956. Of all these distinctive locomotives, only one survived number 4294, the last AC-12 built, now preserved at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. Designated a National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark, she stands as the sole reminder of SP's innovative solution to mountain railroading. 5. New York Central Hudson, the Speed Merchant. When American Locomotive Company delivered the first 464 to the New York Central on February 14, 1927, they didn't just create a new locomotive, they created a legend. Named after the Hudson River, these engines would give their name to all 464 wheel arrangements in North America. NYC ultimately rostered 275 Hudsons, making them the most numerous class of 464s ever built. The J-Class Hudsons were born from necessity. The railroad's Pacific types couldn't handle the increasingly heavy passenger consists of the 1920s. The solution was a larger boiler, an expansive firebox, and a four-wheel trailing truck to support it all. Initial tests between Albany and Syracuse proved the design could haul 16 to 18 heavyweight cars at speeds that left the older engines in the dust. With 79-inch drivers, they became the premier passenger power on one of America's premier railroads. Several Hudsons received streamlining, most notably number 5344, which became the first streamlined steam locomotive in America in 1934. Later, industrial designer Henry Dreyfuss created the stunning streamlined shrouding for the J3 A-Class, which hauled the legendary 20th Century Limited. These locomotives became cultural icons, appearing on album covers and movies, and as Lionel's best-selling toy train. Yet despite their fame and importance, not a single NYC Hudson remains. When the last one was cut up in 1957, rail fans lost one of the most celebrated locomotive classes in history. 4. Norfolk and Western J-Class, the Thoroughbred. When Norfolk and Western's Roanoke shops completed J-Class number 611 in May 1950, they created what many consider the finest passenger steam locomotive ever built. These streamlined 484 Tetses with their distinctive bullet noses and 70-inch drivers could generate 5,400 horsepower and maintain high speeds on the flatlands while conquering the mountains of Virginia and West Virginia. Built entirely in-house by N&W's skilled craftsmen, only 14 Class Js were ever constructed between 1941 and 1950. They were the last mainline passenger steam locomotives built in the United States, marking the end of an era. The J-Class hauled N&W's premier trains, including the Powhatan Arrow, Pocahontas, and Cavalier, along the 676-mile route between Norfolk and Cincinnati. The Class J's advanced design included roller bearings on all axles, cast steel frames, and precision balancing that minimized track damage at high speeds. They were so well built that number 611 survived a serious derailment in 1956 with minimal damage. When dieselization ended their revenue service in 1959, all but one met the torch. Number 611 survived, was restored to operation twice in 1982 and 2015, and continues to pull excursions today as the sole survivor of its class. Designated as Virginia's official state steam locomotive and a National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark, the 611 remains a working example of N&W's engineering excellence. 3. Pennsylvania Railroad. K4 Pacific, the standard bearer. Between 1914 and 1928, the Pennsylvania Railroad's Juniata and Baldwin shops produced 425 K4 Pacific-type locomotives, creating the largest fleet of 462s under one ownership in history. For over 4 decades, these workhorses defined passenger railroading on the standard railroad of the world, hauling everything from locals to the legendary Broadway Limited. The K4 was a masterpiece of scientific design, developed by PRR's famous Altoona Test Department. With 80-inch drivers, a boiler pressure of 205 pounds per square inch, and 44,460 pounds of tractive effort, they could pull 10 passenger cars around the railroad's famous horseshoe curve and achieve spirited speeds on straight track. As trains grew heavier in the 1930s, K4s often double or even triple-headed, creating spectacular displays of coordinated power. 4 K4s received streamlining designed by Raymond Loewy, including those assigned to the Southwind and the Jeffersonian. These locomotives formed the core of PRR's passenger operations until the very end of steam. The last K4 in regular service retired in November 1957, ending a 43-year reign. Today, only 2 survive from this enormous fleet number 1361, undergoing restoration at the Railroaders Memorial Museum in Altoona, and number 3750 preserved at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. In 1987, both were designated as Pennsylvania's official state steam locomotives. 2. Union Pacific Big Boy, the heavyweight champion. When American Locomotive Company delivered the first Big Boy to Union Pacific in 1941, they created the longest and heaviest steam locomotive ever built. These 4 884 articulated giants stretched 132 feet and weighed 1.2 million pounds. Built specifically to haul freight over the Wasatch Mountains between Ogden, Utah, and Green River, Wyoming, they could move 3,600 tons up Sherman Hill's 1.55% grade unassisted. 25 Big Boys were built, with the first 20 delivered in 1941 for the war effort and the final 5 in 1944. Their colossal proportions required innovative engineering. The frame was hinged to navigate curves, while the enormous firebox measured 235 by 96 inches. During World War II, these locomotives proved invaluable, hauling crucial war materials across the Western Mountains. Their reliability was legendary. They were famed for long mountain runs between Cheyenne and Ogden without locomotive changes during peak years. The Big Boys remained in service until 1959, among the last steam locomotives retired by Union Pacific. 8 were preserved, more than any other class of large steam locomotive. In 2019, UP restored number 4014 to operating condition, converting it to oil firing in the process. Today, 4014 tours the UP system as the world's largest operating steam locomotive, a 600-ton ambassador from the age of steam. When you see this behemoth under steam, you're witnessing the absolute limit of what reciprocating steam technology could achieve. 1. Union Pacific Challenger, the transcontinental dream. While the Big Boys grabbed headlines, it was their slightly smaller siblings, the Challengers, that truly conquered the American West. Union Pacific's 4 664 Challengers, first introduced in 1936, proved that articulated locomotives could be fast as well as powerful. With 69-inch drivers and advanced suspension, they could maintain 70 miles per hour with heavy freight consists while tackling the same mountain grades as the Big Boys. UP ultimately owned 105 Challengers, making them the most numerous class of simple articulated locomotives in America. They were versatile machines, equally at home pulling mile-long freights or substituting on passenger trains like the city of Los Angeles. Their design influenced railroads across the nation, with 17 other railroads ordering their own versions of the 4664 arrangement. The Challengers revolutionized Western railroading by proving that one locomotive could replace double heading on most trains, dramatically reducing operating costs. They logged millions of miles across deserts, mountains, and plains, becoming the workhorse of UP's freight operations for 2 decades. The last Challenger was retired in 1962, marking the true end of steam on the Union Pacific. Today, 2 survive, number 3,977 on display in North Platte, Nebraska, and number 3,985, which operated in excursion service until 2010. These locomotives didn't just move freight, they moved a nation westward, embodying the American spirit of conquest and progress. From the record-breaking speed of NYC 999 to the mountain-conquering might of the Big Boys, These 10 locomotives represent the pinnacle of American steam technology. Each was an answer to a specific challenge, a solution forged in steel and powered by fire. They hauled our troops to war, carried families to new frontiers, and built the economic engine that powered the American century. Today, as we watch the few survivors steam past on special excursions, we're reminded that these weren't just machines. They were the iron horses that built a nation, each one representing American ingenuity, determination, and the eternal romance of the rails. Their whistles may have faded, but their legacy thunders on. If you enjoyed this journey through railroad history, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We've got more stories of American innovation and engineering coming down the track. Until next time, keep the home fires burning and remember they don't build them like they used to.